Hey everyone, Adam Gelman here. Been a while since I've uploaded a video to this channel, but wanted to take some time to respond to a couple of these videos that have been circulating around in a thread that was posted on Twitter around the backyard breaks scandal that has been going down in the hobby pretty exclusively over the last couple of weeks. I don't have a lot of good production methods. This is just a webcam on a computer, so you'll have to forgive my ability to be sort of cool and have a lot of really good sort of production value here, but I think it's easy for me to post this rather than discuss it on my blog or discuss it on Twitter in 241 character increments. Um, I'm a big fan of what Eric Whitebag posted on Twitter. I think Backyard Breaks is not my favorite people, and more importantly, there are a lot of reasons to be skeptical about what they do for the hobby and how they approach the hobby. You can tell that over the last probably 10 years, breaker culture has gone in a direction that I feel is kind of weird and kind of unfortunate, but it's become more of the high stakes poker room at a casino rather than sort of providing a service for customers. I realize that as the hobby has boomed, the breakers have had an opportunity to make a lot more money, and whenever there's money to be made, people take advantage of it. We all saw what happened with Trevor Lawrence situation. Then a contest created for them to win a Lamborghini. Miraculously, they win within a week after that contest beginning. But what Eric did with the math there is really cool. Like I'm not going to discount what he was able to put together. It's a really good sort of argument. There's a lot of people coming out and saying, "Well, the math was wrong or this was wrong." That's not really relevant. What's relevant is that the optics are terrible, and their optics are terrible because for a long time, and I mean 20 plus years, and you can go back to the book Card Sharks being written about Upper Deck in the earlier part of the 2000s and late 90s. Like no one trusts the manufacturers, and no one trusts the manufacturers because historically the manufacturers have been showcased to have really taken advantage of a lot of different people across a number of different platforms. And you can see on Sports Card Radio and Sports Card News when they get online, they have 1,500 people watching. It's because people don't trust the process. And they shouldn't, because there's a lot of people out there who are part of these manufacturers that haven't earned that trust. However, that being said, I'm going to do something that's kind of out of character for me, and that's I'm going to defend a little bit of this. I am not going to defend backyard breaks. I have no reason to do that. I am not going to defend any of the people who are routinely being the people that take advantage of others. And though they've given money to charity and though they have had situations, a lot of the things they do just don't sit well with me personally. And that's my choice. And a lot of things that I do probably don't sit well with people either. But let me say it this way. In order for loaded cases to be sent, there has to be a very specific things process that needs to happen. And forgive me because I'm doing this off the top of my head. I don't have like a planned script, so I'm just going to sort of go into this. Eric just showcased throughout the course of his tweets, and they're everywhere now. You can go search him at Eric at the Collector's Guru on Twitter. Search Eric Whiteback. He's really visible. What he did was showcase that they pulled cards that no one should have pulled in the course of the time frame in which they pulled them. And so what ended up happening was in order for the math to work out right, they would have had to had this many boxes, this much money spent, whatever. That is probably not the result of specific cases being sent to them, to backyard breaks. That is probably the result of something else. And here's why. Um, Loaded cases, in order for them to happen, and they have happened because we saw back in 2008 when Beckett received a crazy boxes, a couple of boxes of Upper Deck Exquisite, where they had the 101 Adrian Peterson autograph, they had the 101 Walter Payton and Brian Piccolo dual cut autograph. Prior to that, they had a couple of other product kits that were sent to them. It started my blog 15 years ago. That my blog was started as a result of loaded boxes. And I've developed relationships in the hobby as a result of my blog and as a result of that specific situation. So I'm very up to speed on how this all goes down. Now, the one thing that everybody needs to understand is that I don't think the process has changed all that much over the last however many years. And that's really weird because with all the innovation in technology, the way the cards are packed out is pretty similar to the way it was before. And yeah, so let's take a look at how that goes and why it would contribute to this not really being a worthwhile situation for either people to explore that as an option to get backyard breaks the cards they needed to do the things that Eric was accusing them of. So in order to understand kind of how this all works, you have to understand the relationships that the manufacturers have with the pack out companies. So basically, the only things that Panini does in the course of making a card product is they design the cards, they maintain the league contracts, they maintain the player contracts for the signatures and everything, and they obtain the actual relics. They don't print the cards, they don't pack out the cards, they don't deliver the cards until they are already in boxes. So when you get a hobby direct case, it's from Panini, but it is not packed, printed, or anything by Panini. They only just decide how that product comes together. So what ends up happening is the art department designs the cards, goes through the league's approvals, go through everything. Those cards are then sent to a printer who prints out cards in the machines. Those machines are on videos. Panini shared the behind the scenes as recently as a few years ago. But basically, the cards have to be printed. They have to be assembled. So the relics have to be put in there. The fronts of the cards have to be, it's like sandwiched on there. Then they have to go through like coding and all this other stuff. Then they're sent to the players to have signatures applied or stickers applied if they're not being hard signed. And then the cards come back to Panini. Now, what ends up happening is Panini will look at the specific cards themselves and separate them into categories. Things like base cards, base parallels, case hits, box hits, you name it, however a product is set up. And those are all sort of delivered to a pack out company, which loads them into a machine that gets them into a pack. Now, here's how that happens. Each of the products has a specific number of what they call loops, which are stacks of cards that are loaded into a machine and shot down a line in a specific increment. So if you have 8 base cards in a pack and then there's 12 packs in a box, you can see how that would have to like be shot down a line to encourage that the odds that Panini has set are delivered in the right way. Now, again, this is a third-party company completing this. Panini doesn't own these machines. So they send this, they sign a contract, they sign a service agreement, whatever it might be. And these pack-out companies have relationships with every single card manufacturer because there's not many of these machines that exist. The way cards are packed out for Pokemon, the way the cards are packed out for Topps, Upper Deck, Leaf, you name it, most of the people use one of like 3 different companies to do it, and with varying levels of success. Now, this process is called collation. So Panini only tells this company, these are the cards in the boxes that we're sending you. Here is how we want them inserted across the product, and here's how we want you to deliver that configuration. So we want this many cards in a pack, this many packs in a box, this many boxes in a case, and then give them all back to us, and we'll give them either directly ship them to our customers or get them to the distributors to get out to breakers and whoever. So if you can imagine, for a product like Prism, a product like even National Treasures, I think at this point, like they're literally packed by machines. So, and they're packed away from Panini. Now, Panini has a couple of ways to make sure that the process goes the way that they expect. One is quality checks. So they get sent boxes, or they are there to observe boxes. They pull them off the line. They check to make sure that they QC the process to make sure that the right card's in the right spot, facing the right way. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they check a lot of boxes, sometimes they only check a few boxes. I don't know. I'm an outsider, but this is the way it's been explained to me. Through that process, they can validate that the pack out is going appropriately, and that's really their only involvement. I don't think they're there on the line actually putting the cards in the cases, except for products like Flawless, where there are specific workers putting cards into the individual briefcases. That's called a hand-packed product. It's a hand-collated product, not a machine-collated product. It's a very big difference. And so when you look at sending somebody a loaded case, here's what would have to happen. You would have to go to this pack out facility. You have to compromise the process. You'd have to find the cards in the loops. You'd have to separate those cards from the loops. You'd have to create the pack yourself which means stopping production for that to happen. You'd have to break your service contract. You'd have to break the trust of all the other manufacturers that this pack-out company has had. And because Panini is not the only one that has a relationship with these people, they may not want to allow any of that to happen. There also may be a lot more ethics involved that they are completely against, where they're saying, you're not coming to this line, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. Now, Panini could potentially say, well, we want to do this. This is part of this, and they could manufacture a reason. They could lie about a reason. I just don't find that very plausible, because it opens up a lot of legal liability for both Panini and for the pack-out company to breach of contract, all sorts of things. Paul Lesko's the lawyer guy, but I can assume that anytime you sign a service contract and you start pulling stuff away from it to compromise that process, there's a lot of legal implications that are going to happen. So that's number one. Number two is you have to find these cards. Now, in a product like National Treasures, there's probably 150 to 200,000 cards. I don't actually know. I don't know. I haven't done the math, but there's a lot of cards you got to sort through to find the ones that you want. So if you send the cards down a line, you have to be able to pick them out to assemble or create an idea of where these cards exist within the pack out process. I don't know how easy that is. I would guess it's pretty fucking hard. So if you are looking at it from a perspective of Prism, where Prism could have more than 1 million cards in a product, imagine trying to find one card, one box, one case, whatever, in the line of 10 to 15,000 like cases and boxes at once. Like, that's impossible. So we've seen videos of people getting index cards that show specific places where they think it represents a place of where a card exists. What those ID cards represent is the beginning of a loop. So when the cards are loaded into a machine to shoot them down the line, there's usually an index card included in that, an ID card to tell them which loop it's supposed to go in, how it's supposed to be inserted, etc. The workers are supposed to pull those cards out. Clearly, that didn't happen for WWE Impeccable or other places. So you can imagine where a lot of this stuff is just messed up. Now, the machine shot it down the line instead of a card. Panini seems to have made good on it since then, but that's happened in a lot of places. Same thing with like the Topps issue with the Bowman Sterling packs being matched. Could have been something as simple as the packs fell on the floor and they got to mark them so they know, because they're blank packs. Like, you can't see what's inside them once they're sealed. So maybe they're the case hit packs and they had to mark them because they fell off the line. Who knows? But I can guarantee you all of that stuff was done outside of the manufacturer, not with the manufacturer in partnership, because this is a third-party company operating on a contract, not a portion of Topps telling them mark these packs and whatever. And more importantly, I don't think that signifies anything other than there is a specific type of card in this pack. The cards that Backyard hits were product cards, right? Cade Cunningham 101, Trevor Lawrence Shields, like all of those things are specific cards that you have to find in a gigantic run of stuff. Now, then we're going to ask the question, so if it didn't get pulled off the line, if it wasn't a loaded case assembled on the line by the manufacturer, then how did this happen? That's where it gets dicey, because there's not a level of trust to say that there isn't somebody at Panini that did not send that specific card down with the rest of the stuff for the pack out. That's the more likely experience that's probably happening here. Like, if you have to look at this from a sense of like, does Panini have an interest in seeing Backyard Breaks do well? Probably. Only because they rip so much product. Nothing more than that. Do they have a direct relationship? I think we've confirmed that they do not. Who has a direct relationship with them that wants to see them succeed? I think the question mark there is the distributors and whatnot who support them. And how could those specific situations happen where they got all of these cards? The first is that they just got really lucky. I'm not ready to give them that pass given their history and my personal feelings about them. The other probability is that they got the cards set aside prior to the pack out, which means that Panini would have had to produce the cards, take the cards back, hold them, and send the rest of the cards for pack out. Then either create a case away from the pack out facility and send it to Backyard Breaks, or one of the people associated with Backyard Breaks would have to acquire the card, open a case, put that card in, and reseal it. Now, the reason I say that this is much more likely is because they have a whatnot setup. And a whatnot setup is not one that is meant for transparency. You can have a camera that's pretty far away, you have a camera that's pretty up close. Like, there's not a lot showing that the seams of the box, right? They go fast and furious. I've sat and watched one of their streams. You can easily probably hide a resealed case in there pretty easily. Whether or not they would want to do that is the true question, and how they were associated with the people that got them those cards is the other question. Again, this isn't really a pack out thing. This is a thing that has to do with getting the cards in hand, getting the cards into a case, and getting that case to backyard breaks. And it's not something that I would necessarily assume is part of the pack out of that product. So I think we've got to sort of move away from like, oh shit, like somebody went to the Prism pack out, pulled these cases off the line and sent them there. Like, that's not how this works. Like, what is more likely is that those cards were kept from the pack out, those cases were gathered together some other case in some other way, and that case was sent to them, if that's the way it actually went down. We can't prove that either. Now, Sports Card Radio has suggested that Panini invite them to the pack out process and show them that information. I'm sure there's secret sauce in there that they don't want to show. Like, there's proprietary knowledge that they want to keep from their competitors. And their competitors may eventually become their business partners. So, all of those things are probably a factor here. This is a big sort of conspiracy theory that I think is losing legs rather than gaining it. And I think it's because it's hard to sort of connect these dots in a way that would make sense for all the parties involved. I think we're just sort of have this lack of trust. And I saw the recent video from Sports Card Radio talking about this. They're not wrong. Like, there is a lack of trust, and there's a deserved lack of trust. And there's a deserved lack of trust in the people that are supporting the manufacturers, the breakers themselves. So overall, like, there's a lot of problems here across the hobby, but there has been for 35 years. And more importantly, it's not showing any real sign of contributing to the downfall of the boom. What's driving the boom is a bad economy, not any lack of confidence in these products. So that's just my take on this. Again, I haven't uploaded a video here. I don't have very good production methods, but hopefully my knowledge comes through and my experience comes through. I'm happy to talk about this with anybody who wants to. Leave a comment, follow me on Twitter @SC Uncensored. Shoot me a message. I'm happy to talk about this anytime. Thanks.